Alright, what's going on, y'all? Biblical DNA here. And we have the Ashkenazim series. So I'm going to be doing 3 video series, 3 episodes for this series that covers their origins, genetics, and associations to the Yahudim, the Jews, which will include the genetics. Alright, so go. The Ashkenaz origin. So the Akkadian word Askazai, used by the Assyrians. So the Assyrians called these nomads the Ishkazai, Ashkazai, Ashkalazai. All right. Ashkenaz means a son of Gomer, also his descendants and their land. The ancient Greeks, they called them Scuthis or Scuthai. All right, the name Ashkenaz, or you'll see at the bottom, Ashkenaz, is the biblical Hebrew adaptation of the Iranian tribal name, which was rendered in Assyrian and Babylonian documents of the 7th century BC as Askozah, called in English by the Greek equivalent Scythian. The intrusive N in the biblical name Ashkenaz is likely due to a scribal error, confusing a vav with a nun. All right. Ashkenazim origin kinship. Scythians, Ashkenaz, were related to the Agatharsi, Alans, Amardi, Cimmerians, which are known as the Gomer in Hebrew, Dahe, Jaz, Masagate, Ostians, Saka, and Sarmatians. Hebrew and Greek biblical references. The book of Genesis, chapter 10, verse 3. And sons of Gomer are Ashkaz and Riphath, and Togarmah, or Tagarmah. First Chronicles chapter 1 verse 6, and the sons of Gomer, Ashkaz, and Riphath, and Togarmah. The book of Jeremiah chapter 51 verse 27, lift ye up and a sign in the land, blow a trumpet among nations, sanctify against it nations, summon against it the kingdoms of Ararat, Mini, and Oshkosh. Appoint against it an infant head, cause the horse to ascend as the rough cankersore. And if you notice, the lands of Ararat, Mini, and Ashkenaz, they were tightly located amongst each other. So you have Ararat in our eastern Armenia, Mini in northwest Iran, and Ashkenaz in eastern Iran. The book of Colossians chapter 3 verse 11, where there is not Greek and Jew, circumcision and uncircumcision, foreigner, Scythian, Ashkenazi, servant, free man, but the all and in all Christ, Hamashiach, the anointed one. All right, so we got the map. So the Scythian or the Ashkenazi kingdom in Western Asia. All right, the Scythians originated in Central Asia and Eastern Iran, possibly around the 9th century BC, and they arrived in the Caucasian steppe in the 8th and 7th century BC as part of a significant movement of the nomadic peoples of the Eurasian steppe. This movement started when another nomadic Iranian tribe closely related to the Scythians, either the Masakti or the Asaduns migrated westwards, forcing the early Scythians to the west across the Araxes River, following which the Scythians moved into the Caspian steppe, from where they displaced the Cimmerians, who were also a nomadic Iranian people closely related to the Scythians, and conquered their territory before settling in the area between the Araxes and the Caucasus Mountains and the Lake Maeotos. All right, as you can see, they started their movement, and so they went on top of the Black Sea region. And it's funny because if you look to the northwest of the Black Sea, this is where Arsarith was supposed to be at. So another land, Arsarith. So it's right where you see the Alazones, the Calepida. That's where so-called Arsarith would have been located. So in Russell's Gurmerkins, Burses, and Genesis, Manetho, and Exodus, also commonly known as the Green Book, on page 148 and 149. Starting on page 148, Ashkenaz represents the Scythians who were associated with the Cimmerians in the cuneiform inscriptions, where Ashkenaz appeared in the form Asklazi, as well as biblical texts. The Scythians, in origin a northern tribe like the Cimmerians, invaded and settled in Armenia and Aratu in the 7th century BCE, shortly after the Cimmerians invaded Asia Minor. All right, so go down to 149. So Riphath is identified with the Paphlagonians by Josephus, but this appears to have been merely a guess. In Genesis chapter 10, verse 3, Riphath was associated with the Gomer, the Cimmerians, and Ashkenaz, the Scythians, both of whom were historically northern tribes who came from the Caucasus. All right, the Book of Jubilees associated the Riphath with the Riphaean Mountains, which classical sources equated with the Caucasus. All right, so we have an understanding of where they would have been located. And if you look on a map, you would see, or I can just go back, you would see that Iran is towards underneath the Caspian Sea, going to Central Asia, right beside it. So Mani would have been on the northwest portion of Iran, and Aratu would have been in modern day Armenia. So that's considered the Southern Caucasus or the Lesser Caucasus, and that's also the place where the mountains of Ararat in Genesis chapter 8 verse 4, where the Noah's Ark was supposedly landed at. So if you look down at 149, let me see right here. It shows the citation 57, right? And it mentions as Gomer is clearly from Gimri in the first wave of horsemen to come down from the Caucasus, and Ashkenaz is clearly from the Assyrian Askozeh. Riphat too may be supposed to be a mounted people from the Caucasus. All right. So this is found in Jitz van Schratten, The Origin of the Ashkenazi Jewry. the controversy unraveled. By Ashkenaz, the Scythians are meant, a nomadic people from southern Russia. The Scythians lived in an early period around 500 BCE. Krauss is of the opinion that the name Ashkenaz was preserved for the successors of the Scythians. Page 182. Alright, this is the last slide I have for y'all. So it's in Vladimir Schneider, Traces of the Ten, page 1 or 237. So later came to read erroneously as Ashkenaz, mistaking the inserted vowel vav pronounced as u for the consonant nun pronounced as n, having called the Scythians Ashkenaz. The Bible points us in the direction we must go to seek the lost tribes. So it basically goes into the concept that the so-called lost tribes, the tribes that would have just disappeared after the Assyrians took them into captivity, right? They would have went amongst the Scythians. That's what British Israelism teaches. And from my perspective, and I'm gonna get into it when I do the genetics in the next video, is that they would have been like a minority amongst the Ashkenazim, like the Scythians. No, don't mistake, but between Ashkenazi Jews and Scythian Ashkenazim. The concept comes from they were amongst the Scythians, the Ashkenazim. Germany was never Ashkenazim. That came later on. That has nothing to do with the biblical Ashkenazim. That was something they named that place. But the real Ashkenazim is found on this map. This is where they started. This is where they migrated to. This is where they further migrated to down the 6th century BCE. So it's not to say they didn't go to the direction of Germany, modern Germany, but to say that they were all descendants of Germans, I don't think so. And we'll see that in genetics. So, yep, that's it. If you like this content, please make sure to like, share, and subscribe to my channel. Please leave me any feedback. Like I said, this is how I'm going to be doing these 3 episodes. So it's going to be short and sweet, and hopefully you learned a lot in a short amount of time. All right. Thank you. Biblical DNA out.